Hello everyone, welcome to 3ddesignacademy.com. In this video, I will be continuing on with part 2 of the Porsche 911 project review. Now in the previous lesson, I basically modified this surface over here and also the side so that the light catcher over here is consistent. I think it worked out pretty well. And now let's go on to the rear. If you look at the surface over here, you'll see that there's a little bit weird bulge, so I'm going to try and fix that. Now, the surface patches are actually pretty good, but I think the sequence might be a little bit off. These two surfaces should actually be done first. I think that might be what's causing this. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to delete these because they are, well, I think it might be just easier to do that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to untrim this surface over here to essentially get it back to our theoretical. Except there isn't. So let's just untrim this one over here. Oh, looks like it's, this one's off too, but that's okay. At least the primary surfaces I think are pretty good. So let me just untrim that one, and I'm just going to go ahead and turn the symmetry off. All right, so in a situation like this, what I would suggest is patch this in with the primary surface. So right now, I have a surface like this over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to extend this one just so that I can get it. That's a problem. Okay. So if you look at this primary surface over here, you'll see that this is actually above this one. Now, why is that a problem? Because if I were to just do a rail over here like this, well, it's supposed to end here, but because this is rising, it should actually terminate smoothly over here. So this actually needs to go down, and if you look at this, there's a little bulge over here. So I would probably start with fixing that. Now there are a couple of ways to do it, but since this surface is already over here, I think I might terminate it over here. You know what, let's do this. Let's just find out. Okay, so it looks like that's a square. So I'm just going to start by deleting that. Oh, that's also a square. Okay, that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to build something. Let's do this. Looks like there are a couple of COSs. I'm going to delete all of these because I don't really need them. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to extend this. Actually, yeah, let's do this first. I'm just going to extend the surface over here. And I'm going to just extend the COS over here until it goes all the way to the end, like that. And now, let's just go ahead and I'm just going to grab a degree 2 curve over here, like this. And I'm just going to align. And let's just do a G2 like this. I think that's pretty good. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to project over here like this. Normal or Z vector should be good. Or of course, you can always project it from the top. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a bi-rail. So let's just do 1 and 2. So like this. And that should be good. Now, when you're building, you always go to the theoretical. You'll see that this surface is floating, so it's not actually going to a theoretical. And this one, I had to basically extend it. You always want to go to a theoretical because that's going to tell you if there's something wrong with the surface. If the theoreticals and all the basic surfaces, basically your primary surfaces, are good, the highlights should come pretty easy. Now, that is not always the case, but most of the times I would say if there's a problem with your highlights or your fillets, it's usually due to an underlying primary surface that's causing it. So you always want to go back to a theoretical. Anyways, so let's just make this curvature over here and curvature here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do the curve segment over here so that the patches sort of line up like 90 degrees to the COS. And looks like it's a little bit, it's got multiple spans. So let's just go ahead and do 5 and 5. And that's looking pretty decent. All right, that's it. However, I am going to, it's actually failing continue over here. So let me just make sure that it's curvature. I'm going to say partial like this, and it looks like it's still failing. Oh, now that you'll see that this is actually going all the way like this. Now that could be because of the surface over here. Well, it looks pretty flat, so I wonder if it's due to the COS. So let me do this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically get the position influence back to 0. And I'm going to just do a project. Oh, okay, so it looks like it is failing tangency, but at least it's positional. I would prefer CV structure to be somewhat uniform like this instead of having an acceleration towards the end. That really depends, but let's just take a look. All right, so I'm just going to turn show max label, show command, delete that one. Okay, so it looks like it's failing a little bit over here. That could cause a little problem, but let's see if I can get this to work. Now, actually, if that's the case, you know what? Let me just give this a go. So I'm just going to undo this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the COS over here. And I'm just going to recreate it. I'm going to align over here G2 like that. And let's just go ahead and project. This one I'm going to do view. All right, so that's the COS is now nice and straight. So let's go ahead and do this again and see if this allows me to create the surface a little bit better. All right, so it's still failing curvature, which is fine. But I'm going to see what happens if I do an align. So I'm just going to grab this one over here. I'm going to say edge. Now, if it still accelerates towards here with the position influence set to max, that's, well, in this case, I know that for sure this is due to the surface. I think what's happening is because the patch is actually getting a little bit smaller, I think the surface, if I were to do a fit curve over here, you'll see, well, maybe I'll make it a degree 3 at least. It's accelerating towards here because the surface is basically like being crunched up towards there. Now, if you look at this, you'll see that there's a little of negative. I think that's the reason why. Now, that said, however, I still don't like the structure over here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do project, and maybe I'll try a normal. No, normal doesn't really do it. Now, the problem is if the surface has a lot of acceleration like this, that probably is going to cause a little of an issue, especially even if you look at this, you'll see that there's a negative over here within the CV structure. But I would prefer to keep it this way. So let's just give that a go. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the construction history over here, and I'm going to try to manipulate the CVs a little bit here in order to get it to be tangent. So I'm just going to say mouse sensitivity to 5000. I'm going to grab this one. Let's see if I can get it. It's going up here. It's going up there. So I probably have to manipulate this one over here. But that's starting to fail tangency. Okay. So if this is the case, I will probably have to redo this entire surface over here, which I don't know if I really want to. So let's do this. I wasn't really planning on to do this. If you look at this one over here, you'll see that there's a little bit of potato chipping. Otherwise, the surface is pretty clean, so I don't know why it's doing that, but that, okay. So what I'll do is I'll try to recreate it using a birail and see if that helps. So let's do this. I'm just going to do a birail. It's going to be 1 and 2. Now, I would actually, for this one, I would actually prefer a rail just because it's a little bit cleaner, but I think the deviation might be a little bit off. So let me try. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn rebuild off. Actually, that's not too bad. But if you see this, there's a little bit of, the surface is a little bit off, but I would actually prefer to use a patch like this because it's a little bit cleaner. So what happens is, if you look at this, there's a little bit deviation, but let's let's use this and see how that does. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm just going to hide this over here like that. Now there is going to be a little bit of deviation, but this should actually be not a difficult fix. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to untrim this one, and this one. And because the surface is relatively straight, it should be pretty easy to get it all lined up. And as you can see over here, you'll see that it's achieving curvature nicely. The highlight's still pretty good if you look at this. So yeah, that's flowing nicely. Now, of course, you do have to fix all of these, and you do have to realign this one. But overall, it's going to allow you to achieve I would say, a little bit cleaner result. So I'm just going to align this one over here. Let's make it an edge. There's a little gap. Why is that? Oh, there we go. I'll probably do vector just to keep the CV structure somewhat even. And that should be good. Now, I'm not going to redo this, but let me just trim that out so that it's not super messy. So let's go ahead and take a look. Of course, all of these fillets should be redone. I'm just going to do it for my, like that. And I can just trim it over here. No, it won't let me. Oh, because I missed a spot. All right. So let's just go ahead and do this one over here. Oops, I don't reset. I'm just going to go ahead and trim. And let's just go ahead and trim this too. All right, so now I got a nice clean highlight. Actually, that probably needs a fixing too, but I don't know if I'm really going to tackle them all, but let's continue on with this one. All right, so now that's done, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete the construction history. I don't mind this surface. It's just that this one probably needs to dive down over here a little bit so that it's a nice finish. Because right now it's just floating, and I think that's part of the reason why it's causing a little bit messy highlight over there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to extend this back over here. Why won't it let it? That's weird. Why won't it just snap? Oh, there we go. Okay, and now what I can do is I can just, actually, you know what? Let's do this. I'm just going to, actually, you know what? Since it's like that, let's just do this. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snap a curve here, and I'm going to snap a curve here, and this time I'm going to make it a degree 3, and I'm going to align. But since edge is going to do something like this, if I were to align an edge like that, well, I guess that's not too bad, but you can always use a vector too. All right, so I have a surface there, and I'm just going to do a surface over here, and of course it does need to be curvature, and looks like that's pretty good. However, you'll see that the CV structure over here is a little bit off. So I'm just going to do a little bit of rotation to make sure that's somewhat controlled. All right, so, and that's going to bring all of these lines down and probably going to create a little bit smoother result, I hope. At least it's not going to create a kink like this. All right, so now that's done, let's just go ahead. However, you might need to blend this in, but I'm just doing it roughly. So let's see how that does. All right. So now that this is done, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, first of all, delete the construction history over here. And I do need to trim this one. So let's just go ahead and untrim that one over here. And I'm going to just untrim this one over here like this. Is that a fillet? Oh, that is a fillet. So I don't need that anymore. And I'm just going to untrim this one over here, and let's just cut it. So I'm just going to extend that one. I'm going to grab this one. Let's just delete all the COS like that, because I don't really need those. I'm going to grab these two over here. I'm going to intersect like this to create a nice trim. Now that does look a little bit funky. So I think what probably needs to happen is I think I should actually have a curve that goes like this. It should all be continuous. So obviously there's something wrong there. So let me give that a go. So I'm just going to, first of all, trim this one. So extend, select it. Just going to extend like that. All right, so what needs to happen is that this curve should be pretty smooth, but as you can see over here, it's dipping down and going up, which is not exactly desirable. So let's see if I can do a little fix on that one. So what I'm going to do is, actually, if this was to rise, I mean, I could just manipulate the CVs a little bit, but let's see, it should actually be something like that. But it still creates a little bit of kink. But what you want to do is you just want to make sure that it's somewhat smooth. So it looks like this surface actually needs to go up a little bit. So I think what actually needs to happen is I'll probably create a curve like this so that it meets there. So let me see how this does. So I'm just going to snap a curve like this, and I'm just going to create, just align it over here, because it should be continuous to that. So I'm going to say degree 3, like that. Oh, let's just do a revert. Let me just make this into degree 3 first. And I'm going to align this piece over here, like that. Okay. So that, it's not, you know what? Let's do this. I'm going to pick this one. And that, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be just continuous. So I'm going to just grab a blend curve over here. Well, actually, you know what? No, blend curve. Yeah, it does this. So let me see if I were to just do this one. Just going to pick the curvature over here. Maybe give it a little bit of acceleration so that's a little bit more even. Just do a little bit of control like that. And let's see how that does. I think it's supposed to be continuous like that. Now that is going to probably mimic the surface a little bit better. Now that's not, however, I don't, well, it is a triangle patch, which I don't really want. So what I could do is I could just rail it like this, but well, let's give it a go and see how that does. So I'm just going to do a rail. No, that's terrible. So parallel is not going to do. I wonder if moving the CV like this is the best way, because right now, if you look at this, it's not, because primary surfaces should have actually aligned it over here. You know what? Let's just do that. Okay, so I'm just going to leave it like this. It's a little bit better. So it's not ideal. I think everything should have been set up a little bit better, the primary surfaces, but I think that's going to require a little bit of tear up. So I think I'm just going to leave this one like that. So there's a little bit of that over here, but let's just highlight on the, concentrate on the bigger picture, which is this fillet over here. All right, so now what I can do is I can just grab this curve over here, grab a curve. I'm going to align on this over here. And I'm just going to project. And it's just going to be view. So now I got 4 edges, which means I can use a square. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, and 4 on this edge over here, like this. And of course, it looks like it's got multiple spans. So let's just go ahead and do a little bit of cleanup. So I'm just going to do 5 and 5. And 4 is going to be curvature. And 1 is going to be curvature. And it looks like there's a little bit of CV weirdness over here. So I'm just going to do a little bit of boundary blend in order to make sure that everything is smooth. Now that looks actually pretty good. So now the highlight is a little bit better. The flow is good. It's not doing a little bit of weird kink over there. So I think that's a little bit better result. Now there's a little waviness over here, but that's it's not desirable, but it's pretty minor. So I would say that's good. All right, so that's how you tackle that. So all you need to do now is just trim this one. Of course, you're going to trim that one. Let's just go ahead and project it against over here. Like that. And now all you need to do is just put the fillet back on there. But before that, let me just make sure that this is all trimmed. So let's see, it's a freeform blend. I actually don't like freeform, don't like using freeform blend that much. I just prefer to use a surface fillet. Okay, so it looks like it's about 10 mil. So I think I'm just going to finish it with that. So I'll just do it up to this point. So let's just grab surface fillet. It's going to record. It's going to be G2. It's going to be 10. Form factor will be set to 1. And I'm just going to pick these ones over here. Like that. And I'm just going to say default. And I'm going to set this one to edge align. Now, because of this is, I think it's getting close to curvature. I think that's why it's doing that. So what I'm going to do is let's actually change this to existing theoretical. That should give me a better result, which it does. Oh, that's good. All right, so I just need to trim this one. So let's do that. So delete the construction history there. And I'm just going to project this one over here. I'm just going to connect the two. I know it's not fitting, but the point of this is to just show you guys the steps and the idea or the concept behind what needs to happen. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so, whoa. Okay, so I think that looks a lot better. The highlight continues and washes out nicely as it goes towards the rear. There's no weird little bulge. So yeah, that's how you do it. All right, so let's just go ahead and while I'm in this one, let's just go ahead and fix this one also. Now, this should be a pretty easy fix. So if you look at the surface structure over here, the reason why it's having just a very sharp transition over here is because I believe this is tangent. I feel like this should be a tangent continuity. And oh, actually, that's really close to curvature. That's interesting. Then I don't know why it's creating such a sharp transition. Well, anyways. Now, this one, I think the primary surfaces are actually pretty good. The transition over here, but I think this just, I think there just needs to be a little bit of structure or the patch layout, a fix that can improve it dramatically. Now, when you're doing this, I would actually, for wheel flat, I wouldn't make it out of several patches like these. I prefer just a single sheet. So let's go ahead and do that first. So what I'm going to do is, let's just untrim this one over here. I'm going to see if I can just connect it using a freeform blend between the two. It is going to be G2. There is a little waviness, but I'm not going to deal with that. Usually when you have something like this, that is going to create a little kink. So you probably want to avoid that and just make the whole entire wheel flat first before making this. All right, anyways, let's just go ahead and tackle this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to untrim this one over here like this, and let's untrim that one over here. Okay, so I'm actually going to, this surface is pretty good, so I'm going to keep that. But what I'm going to do is, instead of having multiple patches over here, I'm just going to make it out of one. So let's just go ahead and delete this COS over here, and this one I'm going to just cut it off. So actually it might be easier if I just do that. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect a curve from here to here like this. I'm just going to align this piece over here. Oh, should have made a degree 3. Like that. So I'm going to say align. I mean, it's a little bit of, there's a little bit of a waviness, but that's okay. But I do need to go to here because that's where the new surface starts. This one I think should be pretty good, so I think I'm just going to leave that. And now I'm just going to project over here using view. Let's go and trim. All right, so now that's trimmed. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do a bi-rail over here on this one first. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use this tool. Let's see. Profile blend. Now there was a tutorial that I did where I couldn't use this, but what I'm going to do, well, let's see if this one works. Oh, why Now this probably means that there is a continuity failure between these two. So let's see. And it's tangent, or failing tangency. So let me just, and this one should, the CV structure probably should go down a little bit just to make it a little bit better, but I think I'm just going to leave it. All right, so that's where I do need these two surfaces to be continuous. So now just looking at this, I'm not sure which one came first. Ideally, you probably want to align this one and align this one secondary, but secondary to that, just because of this actually is going towards a wheel flat. So, well, let's do that. So I'm just going to, well, actually, you know what? Let's see. I'm just going to align this one. I'm going to say vector. It's going normal. And that's what happens. So you don't want to do that. So let's just go ahead and align this one first. So I'm just going to align this one. I'm going to say curvature might not be desirable just because of the underlying CV structure is not the best. So I'm just going to say tangent, and looks like that's a little bit more, that's a little bit better. And to be honest, yes, curvature is desirable, but if I were to do tangent curvature, as you can see, you know, right now the CV structure is pretty good, but if I do curvature, it's going all over the place. So in this case, I think I'm just going to leave it tangent. All right, so now that's done. Let's just go ahead and trim this one. Oops. Now the surface that did become modified. So I do need to modify that back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to align this one. I'm going to say, well, since I already aligned it, I can just do curvature over there, and that should be good. Okay, so now let's just go ahead and trim. I'm going to trim here, but let's just get rid of all these COSs over here like this. Oh, okay, there we go. I'm just going to trim this one. Of course, because I modify some of these surfaces over here, they all should be checked. And the continuity to this one should also be checked too. All right, but let's just go ahead and do this one. So I'm going to try a profile blend. So modify the parameters. Now I haven't used this tool much, so I think I'm supposed to click these ones first. Okay, so I'm going to say accept, and I'm going to just pick this one over here. Could not build a blend. Why? Wonder why. Well, looks like I probably need to learn how to use this. So I wonder if it's supposed to be used like these. No, that's not it. Okay, well, I give up. All right, so if that's the case, so let's just use a rail. And it's going to curve over here. On rail 1 and rail 2. Curvature like this. Now, why was this doing that? Okay, so now the continuity over here, I care less about, but it's curvature, so that's good. All right, and now let's just go ahead and patch this in with a square. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, looks like this surface is a little bit short. So let's just go ahead and untrim it like that. This one. Now there should be a curve segment somewhere, manipulator over here, but I'm not seeing it. So I wonder what happened. Turn on, turn back on. Looks like it's just not working. So let's just do it again. So 1 and 2. There we go. I'm just going to push that in a little bit like that. And let's just go ahead and do a square. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Why won't it? Oh, because, oh, it's floating. Oh, that's annoying. All right, so if that's the case, all you have to do is just create a new curve. So I'm just going to duplicate this, and I'm just going to align it. There is going to be a, well, basically there's going to be a small fillet. All you have to do is just do that. Just align it like this, and well, because there's actually not a lot of gap, so just putting the fillet over that should solve that. So not a big problem there. So all I'm going to do is just do a square. So it's going to 1, 2, 3, and 4. And of course, 1 is going to be curvature. 3 is going to be curvature. And let's just reset that. And looks like it's failing position, but it's probably due to that. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to reduce the angle on this one like that. And that should help it a little bit. Now, because of these two surfaces are actually not tangent, basically telling this to achieve curvature, or it is tangent, it's not curvature. Basically telling this to be basically fitted when it's trying to get a curvature here is going to be a little bit difficult, if not impossible. So you just want to watch out for that. All right, that's it. However, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to float these down because I think there's a little weird bulge over here. So I'm just going to grab the ECVs. Of course, that does mean you would have to redo this one. Well, I'm just going to push that down a little bit just to make it a little bit less bulgy, I should say. I think that helps a little bit. All right, so I think that's pretty good. And now let's just try to take care of this one because right now the continuity is completely off. All right, so there's a big kink between the two. That's actually making it quite difficult. I wonder if the result is actually worse. Let me just go back. Oh, looks like it won't do. Let me do Control Z. Oh, that's fine. Okay, so now this is actually the primary over here, and this is a secondary, which means I should actually align this one to here. The only problem is, of course, that this surface is structured like this. So basically, this one is a little bit bigger, whereas this one's a little bit smaller. So you always want to align the bigger one to the smaller one. Well, let's see if I can just do a little bit of that and just try to play around with the structure. There's something definitely funky going on over here. As you can see over here, the structure over here is not that great. It's got a little bulge. I think so. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to well, one does need to be curvature. I just think that there's a little bit too much bulge on this one. So basically that means the theoretical over here is there's something not working. Now for a fender piece like this, of course, that's a little bit hard to control. So let's do this. I'm just going to delete the construction history on this one. And I'm going to... Problem means, okay, so if you look at this, the problem becomes very visible. As you can see over here, it's actually going in like that, which is not desirable. It should actually have a even peak all the way through. Now that's not how it still meets a theoretical. So let me just give it a go and see if it'll work. So I'm just going to trim all that. And I might have to structure this a little bit differently, but let's give this a go and see how that does. Okay, so first of all, I'm just going to extend this one. I think having that patch a little bit too big is not, oops. Let me just resize this one. Oh, that's actually making it worse. All right. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and see. Okay, so the angle is actually off by about 3 degrees, which is actually really, really bad. Okay, so first of all, let me just align this one. Let's delete the curve. I'm going to align this one, and I'm going to align this one. Let's just go ahead and do a partial over here. Yeah, that's really bad, but let's just play around with that. Okay, so it's off by 3 degrees. So this is going to be a little bit tricky. First of all, that's not off by much. So I'm just going to put it there. Okay, and now let's just go ahead and use align 2008. I'm going to say both. I'm just going to look for tangency for now. I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to grab this one. Okay, max gap. It's not horrible. I'm going to say fixed. Oh, this is going to be difficult. All right, so now that's done. I at least achieved tangency between the two. And if you look at the highlight, it's not great, but it's not horrible either. So now what I'm going to do is, oh, that's no good. Okay. So I'm going to say intersection. I don't know. Okay, so let's do fixed like that. And I'm going to see if I can just get at least tangency on both sides, because I think getting a curvature might be a little bit challenging, especially with that. So I'm going to say vector over here. The CV structure is horrible too. All right, so try to get tangency there, and tangency there. If it doesn't work, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to patch it outside like this and just have, well, maybe that might be a little bit better. But let's actually give this a go and see what happens. Yeah, I think that might be better. All right, so let's give that a go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, delete the construction history, and just hide it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to patch this over here so that this is not affected. So let's just make this. So I'm going to let this go all the way to the end. I think this might be better. All right, and now I'm just going to do a rail. And I'm going to do a curvature over here. And I'm going to do a curvature over here. Of course, it's going to do this because, well, these two surfaces are only tangent. So that's why it's doing this. I'm just going to, first of all, make it natural. And let's just do an explicit control. And I think the highlight is a lot better. It's a little bit smoother. And it's less crunched up than before. All right. So I won't be able to achieve curvature, but I should at least be able to get closer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little bit of rotation just to clean up the CV structure on the outboard side, as you can see over here. Now, I don't really need to fix it, but I do need it. I would prefer to be a little bit cleaner. So also playing around with the CV structure over here is going to allow me to, doing a little bit of rotation, is going to allow me to play around with the highlights over here a little bit. But basically what I'm trying to achieve is a little bit of balance, because it's going to be, the surface outside is going to be all cut up anyway. So you just want to get it close. All right, so I would say that's actually pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to check the continuity on all the surfaces. So that's tangent. Oh, that's still no good. Okay, but highlight is a lot better than before, as you can see over here. So that's good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to align this one over here. Whoop, what's going on? So I'm just going to do a query. Oh. I don't know why I hit symmetry over there. So I'm just going to align over here, and I'm just going to do curvature. Actually, you know what? I should do tangent. And I'm going to also do tangent over here because these surfaces are not curvature to begin with. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play around within the tolerances like this. All right, so it's not tangent over here. Of course, it does need to be tangent. I should be able to achieve tangency at least over here. So let's just play around with this. So I'm just going to say 5,000 over here. It's 0.5 is a lot better than before. It's starting to fail here, so just try to do this one. And right now the comb is a little bit too small for me to look. So I'm just going to delete that and I'm going to do it again. So what you want to do is you just want to be careful that moving this CV over here is not going to cause a failure on this side, which it's starting to do now. So I'm just going to do that. I don't want to do that. Okay, so now I'm just going to, well, actually, let's push this one a little bit more. So I'm just going to push that. Of course, it's starting to kink over here, so I'm just going to push this down over here. So it looks like I was able to get it down to 0.28. Now the fact that these two surfaces are not curvature is really hurting. But with the structure as of now, there's not a lot of things I can do. All right, so that's when I'm going to start manipulating the other side. Hopefully I can play around with the tolerances and at least get it. Before I do that, I'm just going to try to get it to tangent, because obviously, theoretically or practically, curvature is impossible because of this area over here. So I'm just going to play around with this. Okay, so that's starting to fail there. So that's starting to make it actually really bad over there. So if that's okay, so let's try to play around with this one over here. So because of these have to move at the same time, I'm just going to move it in Z. That's actually getting pretty close over here. Oh, starting to fail there. And if that's okay, so let me try to move this one over here. I'm getting closer. Okay, so it looks like it's failing there. Oh, that's really bad. All right, so I'm actually going to try and slide this a little bit too. Let's go ahead and adjust the mouse sensitivity over here. Okay, so I got it off of this one. I wonder if that's okay. So now I'm going to, oops. If it's affecting that, I'm going to do this one. Just going to reduce it up to this point, and if I just, oh, that's actually pretty bad. All right, let's try to reduce that. Okay, and hopefully I can just get it to be tangent. Okay, so 0.12, it's starting to get close, but it looks like it's failing, it's starting to fail over here. But I care less about this area because this is adjacent to this one. So this comes in, well, this is a little bit more difficult area to achieve tangency. Okay, so I'm just going to do that, and I'm just going to go over here and try to get tangency on this side by basically playing within the tolerance. It's not a perfect tangent, but, well, the circumstance calls for it. Okay, so that's good over there, and I'm just going to get it to, oh, there we go. I'm just going to move this one, and there it is. So CV structure is a lot better, highlights a lot better. And I think, yeah, I think this one works. So if you look at this, I do see a little bit of kink, but, well, it's better than before. All right, so the last thing I need to do is I just need to trim this one. So let's just go ahead and do that. Whoa, I don't want that. So I'm just going to grab this one over here. Actually, you know what? I can just do a fillet. So let's just take a look. Oh, it's still freeform blend. So I'm just going to measure the distance between this one and this one. So about 1.8. So let's just grab this one. Oh, now because this is actually like playing on with just barely within the tolerance, I think that's why it's causing a basically a break between the two. So unfortunately, I think I'm just going to do this. Build. Existing theoretical, build theoretical, work chord, and there it is. But highlights much better, so pretty happy with the result. But it's not a perfect tangent, so that's why it's causing a problem like this. So it is within the tolerance, but ideally it should be a little bit better than that. All right, but yeah, that's how we fix it. All right, so still a couple more areas that I do need to go over. So we'll continue that in part 3. Want to learn more? Then become a member at 3ddesignacademy.com, where you will find hundreds of video tutorials ranging from basics, including car creations, intermediate level tutorials such as this wheel, all the way to Class A modeling of the entire car exterior. Interested? Visit 3ddesignacademy.com.